Welcome to the Winning in Business podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Rissy, and I love talking to business professionals, leaders, and entrepreneurs who are winning in business. Are you ready to reach your next level of success? If so, join us on the Winning in Business podcast as I interview entrepreneurs, business professionals, and leaders who share how they've risen to success. Before we begin, go ahead, hit subscribe and the notification button so you'll be notified each time a new episode is released. Plug in and settle in. You're about to be inspired to rise up to your next level of success.
Welcome to another episode of Winning in Business. My name is Kelly Rissy, your host, and today I'm super excited to be here with Jennifer Bardot. You are going to love this conversation. Let me tell you a little bit about Jennifer. Jennifer is a consultant for WTW St. Louis office as a health and benefits producer. She is also a champion of women. She is a mentor, a connector, and a 3-time international best-selling publisher and author. She is also a speaker and a community volunteer. And I tell you what, Jennifer in 2021 was one of the top 100 people that you need to know in the St. Louis small business community. And that is why we all need to know her. And so I'm super excited to have her on the podcast. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for asking me to be on your podcast, Kelly.
Yes, and I know that throughout this podcast, we are going to dive into all of the things that I just mentioned in your little bio, because I think that everything that you're doing is so super important. So, tell us to start off with, how did you get into doing what you're doing? And, I know that you have this amazing career and you're also just doing so many things in the community, and maybe just share how you're connecting those together.
Well, I'm actually writing about that in my chapter for intention, so you can read more about it this July. But really what happened was just I had an epiphany about 6 years ago that I needed to focus more on my professional career. I was a mom of 3 boys and I'd always prioritized them, but really I had 2 master's degrees, but I just kind of plateaued in regards to my professional development. And then I became more intentional about what I wanted that to look like and the impact that I wanted to make in the community. So then it was just, let's go and see how fast we can go. So GRIT came out of the time of COVID. I really saw a need of bringing women together because churches you couldn't access, your community book clubs you couldn't access. So I really wanted to build an inclusive community, which is where GRIT community came from. Just connecting women and making them feel empowered and building a strategic community. That's essentially where my GRIT community came from. And in regards to my career, I've just been really strategic in regards to my professional development. Each year I challenge myself with a different course or a different way that I can grow. So I've been doing various professional development courses since 2019. And every year I've either increase my income by 38%, or I have decided to tackle a new project, which is essentially where the anthologies had came from as well. So that's a little bit about how I got to where I am now.
I love that. Personal and professional development is so important for me as well. I also have a master's degree. I was a former educator. So just the learning and that growth mindset and always bettering yourself, that to me is so important. So I love that you are always continuing to do that as well. And I know that as someone who does that, we like to surround ourselves with people who are doing that also, you know what I mean? Because that's how we lift each other up and, come together. So the GRIT community, I want to kind of go into, what does GRIT stand for? Because I know that each of these letters stands for something. So you want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the first anthology that I published was called Owning Your Grit. And I did that beside Carrie Burgraff. And the acronym that we decided that really defined it, GRIT, was growth, resilience, intention, and tenacity. Because in order to truly have grit, you have to have all of those components, and they're kind of interwoven. And you were just talking about the whole professional development. One of the first courses I took was on strategic thinking. And little did I know that when I was publishing my first book, that would unfold into an entire collection called the Deconstructing GRIT Collection to truly help women and others in our community learn how to have grit within themselves and be able to recognize that they have had grit, because life is challenging and you're always going to run into obstacles. But if you can lean on your grit to get you through these difficult times, that creates hope. So
yes, yes. So super. And so you have done 3 books so far. So you did the first one, and then you did growth, and then you did resilience, and now you're working on intention, right? What you said is coming out in July. Okay. And then you already have the last one, which will be tenacity. Like, are you starting?
I'm recruiting authors right now for tenacity. So I have a list of those that want to be a part of that, and that will anticipate the launch date for that'll be November the 1st, 2023. And the reason why I'm getting these rolling out so quickly, like every 6 months, is just because there's been a long-term COVID effect of PTSD, and women and people just need to learn how to have grit, to be resilient. And so I'm teaching it, and that's why I've been launching these so quickly. So.
Yes. Oh, yes. That's super excited. And I know you and I had talked about that also. I was in a book, in an anthology during COVID as well, and it was called Fearless and Fabulous. And it was interesting because the subtitle actually changed from what we all had submitted. Like the publisher of it ended up changing it because it was just like what we all submitted was just talking about like changes from midlife and beyond because of who we were and the fearless things that we had done in our life. And I feel like each of your books is really that as well. Yours may not have been women like over 40, you know what I mean? I feel like a lot of us were over 40 that were in that book, but just phenomenal. So
I'm really intentional about when I'm recruiting authors for these anthologies. Each anthology has at least a minimum of 40 women in these books, only women, because I truly want one of the readers to be able to step into the shoes of the authors to relate. So no, it's very dynamic in regards to age, ethnicity, title, and born, and all of the dynamics, because I think that's a huge layer of when you're trying to develop grit or identify grit within yourself, because it alleviates some of that loneliness when you can see yourself in one of the author's stories. So.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's fabulous. And being able to see yourself in someone's, story as well. And then having those people in there that also are like that little bit ahead of you, right? That you're like, oh, and I aspire to be that, you know what I mean? Like always having that reach to person as well. So, oh, that's great. So for you and being, just so successful in life and business, everything, what are some ahas that you want to share that you feel like have contributed to your success?
So I reflect often, right? I reflect often because there's always room for improvement. And I never see myself as success, because I think there's always room for improvement. Like the Japanese, they talk about constant improvement is the way that you invite innovation. It's the way that you invite humility. So I never perceive myself as being ultimately successful, because there's always another layer of how I can grow and develop. But sometimes by having that kind of drive and that top performing mindset, I tend to take on a bit too much, right? So I stretch myself. So I try to reflect to make sure that I know when my energy has been depleted. So then I need to do more self-care, or, are the things that I'm saying yes to truly filling me up, or do I need to redirect that energy to something that actually does ignite my fire? So when I started these anthologies, I had just switched careers. I had only been in the health and benefits industry for a month, and I was realizing that I needed to stay close to my joy. So through reflecting, I realized that I needed to write 4 more anthologies and really lead these to bring community and women, because there was a need. But I'm just really, I guess I'm very intentional on the moves that I make. And I always make sure that I'm filled with passion when I make my next steps. Because if you look at my my bio or my resume, it's very unique in the sense that I started with 2 masters in counseling, and here I am in health and benefits. So it's just always guided on passion and what's igniting my fire. So reflection would be my answer.
And in that, if you didn't hear these little tiny nuggets within the big answer of reflection, I'm going to share them back to you, because these are things that I work with my clients on. So the one thing was stay close to your joy. right? And it is so important for us to know what is depleting our energy. And you talked about that, right? And there are going to be things in life that we have to do that's going to deplete our energy. And it's like, you just have to do them, you know, or you got to hire them out, like either way, you know what I mean? And when you recognize that, like, ooh, this is depleting my joy, then what can you fill in next to it that's going to bring your joy up, right?
Yeah.
Like that is super important. And when you deplete your energy, know what's going to bring your energy up. So that was something that you had mentioned in there. I also heard a little bit of boundaries in there, right? Knowing when to say yes, knowing when to say no. And I feel like as women, that's something that everyone really has an opportunity to work on and to grow from, because we are yes people. And it's like, that's just ingrained in us to be yes people, and to really learn, like, is this the best yes for me? Or could it be a better yes for somebody else? You know what I mean? And let someone else have that yes. And then the other thing you had mentioned is intention, being intentional. You packed all of those in that one little thing. So anyway, good for you. That was fabulous.
It's been a huge lesson, and the boundaries, I think, is the hardest thing for me, because I'm a reforming people pleaser, right? So like, I'm so proud to say that I stay firm with the boundaries that I don't want to cross, and I'm very intentional about that. Yes.
Yes. Good for you. Congratulations. Like, seriously, give yourself a pat on the back for that, you know. And I know, like, as someone who also has boundaries, it's something that we continue to work on, you know what I mean?
For
like,
sure.
it's always being intentional about it.
And we're always evolving. And I think the things that filled my cup in regards to joy like 6 years ago are definitely not the same things that fill my cup with joy these days. So just being mindful of how we're constantly evolving is really important. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's great. Okay. What else do you have for us?
I don't know. Like,
I don't know. I put everything in one thing.
I love to hang around people too that fill my cup. Like, we can't always be strong all the time, right? We need to lean on our network. So really being intentional about who you spend your time with, those trusted advisors are just really critical. That's the other piece. The support mechanism is critical. I was just sharing that with my boys. You know, when you're learning something, it's all about practice. We were bicycling this weekend, so it's all about practice and repetition. But when you're not confident in something, you need to have your support network to either lift you up, show you the ways, or feed into you. So then you're that much more confident to continue on. So support is critical.
Yes. And I think with that goes that, you know, as humans, our number one thing is fear of failure. Fear of failure, right? Like, I mean, we all have it. It's all fear of failure. And like you said, when you have that support system and you have people beside you going, you can do it. Like, I believe in you. What do you need? How can I help you? You know, whatever that looks like. And even if it's just someone standing beside you, cheering you on, right? That helps you. And it's right. We always say it's not about getting rid of the fear. It's about doing it through the fear, right? It just takes courage to do it through the fear.
It helps you take on the world and just have that confidence that you can take on the world. That belief is critical.
Yes. And I, you know, what you're doing of building this very cool, close-knit tight community of women who are coming together in a way to support each other, right? Because there are, you know, I mean, let's call it as it is. Women can be catty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so really, like you said, surrounding yourself with the right people that are always there to build you up and always there to support you and cheer you on. And as women, when we know that we can do that in a better way for each other, we can all rise up. We can all lift each other up when we do that. Yeah.
And I think one of the self-limiting beliefs, particularly in women, is that judgment. We're always judging ourselves and judging others. And whenever those light bulb moments go off, that's when you really know that there's some work that needs to be done. Why am I starting to tick? You need to look at the mirror and see what's making you tick, because if there's some sort of judgment that's arising when you're with other women, there's some work that needs to be done.
Yes. I call them triggers.
Yeah, triggers.
Trigger. Yeah. What's the trigger? And then the trigger is definitely the reflection 100% of it's not the other person, right? The other person doesn't need to do anything. It's where does the work in you need to be?
Yes.
For sure. You know,
and self-awareness is so critical.
Yes. Something that you know, judgment and comparison is huge. And I feel like it's gotten even bigger for once social media came on. Right. I mean, because now you know what everybody's doing all the time around you. When I grew up, unless you were truly like in front of these people and knew what they are doing, you didn't know what they were doing. You didn't know what was going on in their lives. And now it's everywhere and you can see it everywhere. And it's looking at it as, when you start comparing and judging yourself, it's bringing yourself into neutral statements. Sometimes we can't always go from, I hate or whatever about myself to like, I love about me, right? But we can bring it into that neutral statement that can keep everything just neutral, not good, not bad, not right, not wrong. It's just neutral. And that can make it so much easier. You know what I mean? Like she has a family and I have a family.
Right.
Her family's not better than mine. Worse than nothing. We both just have families. And when you bring it into such neutral statements like that, it just takes all of that judgment and comparison out of it.
Absolutely. A quote that I always tell my boys is, we're not in competition with anybody other than ourselves. And I think that just framing it in that way is really important, because in our world, we are taught to be so competitive, but truly we can't level up until we pour into ourselves and understand how we need to grow. We shouldn't be comparing ourselves with anybody else other than ourselves. To make sure we're showing up as our best self.
Yes. And I think in the business community, I have a lot of business owners that listen to this, as well as business professionals. And, I think we always need to remember that just that abundance mindset. There is enough for everybody to go around. There's a whole lot of people in this world that need a whole lot of services, and you just find your people. And there's a lot of them.
I just did that today. So obviously St. Louis is heavily insured. We have lots of insurance providers. So I'm a part of this group that primarily supports minority and women run construction companies. And the target prospect is much smaller than what I normally handle, but I was able to figure out what their needs were to then make a referral with another insurance broker that focuses on small business. Like, that's the abundance mindset. That's how you become a true value add contributor in our community, when you learn how to work together. There's enough for all.
Yes, 100% agree. Good. Okay. Anything else you want to share about any other big ahas that you have, mindset qualities, anything that is mentors that have like really helped you just succeed?
I think I'm really big on just listening to ourselves, because I think ourselves is able to tell us the signs in which we need to grow. So like for me, when, I'm bored, obviously that means that I'm not like challenging myself enough. So I like to sit and think, hey, what's something new that I want to do? So like for me, growth is always, it's first you have that light bulb moment when there's something new that you want to develop or just grow in. And then it's taking the action to make it come to life. So many of us sit like, oh, we should, coulda, woulda. No, there's always time. Maximize the time that you have on this earth, and then take action to figure out how you're going to learn how to do something new. And then once you've conquered it, that's your goal. That's when you celebrate and you have that liberation feeling. So for me, I'm always thinking about, hey, what do I want to learn next? Because I feel like if we're not growing, we're dying. And I love to grow. I love learning. So it's just like, what's next? So who knows? And it's kind of energizing when you think of life like that, because there's always opportunity and you're never stuck.
And I think I'm going to say this for some of the people out there that, I was one of those people, right? And it was like, I wanted to learn so much that then I would end up trying to learn too many things, like, ooh, I'm going to do this and I'm going to do this. And and then they would all drop off. And so now I ask myself, like, can I complete this? If I start it, will I complete it? Or do I have so much on and I'm learning other things that will it just end up like, I'll be really excited. I'll do the first lesson or the first whatever, you know what I mean? Watch part of it and then it'll just fall by the wayside. Because that's, you know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I want to do this and this. So I really have to be very cognizant about going, I'm going to put that on a list. And that one is not right now for me because I'm doing this right now. And my intention is to really be good at this one. So I don't know if that's you or not, but I know that.
So what I realize is that since I do commit,
Yes.
I hold myself accountable and I make sure that if I'm committing, then I follow through and I complete that. But
Yes.
I do have a list in regards to things that I want to complete like long term. But when I'm
Yes.
thinking like chunks, like, every quarter, what I want to complete,
Yeah.
hold myself accountable. And it sounds like that's what you do too. You hold yourself
Yes.
accountable because if you're going to commit, you want to follow through.
Yes. Because there's a million online courses you can take. I mean, there's a million,
Yeah.
right? And then some
Yep.
of them are just, low cost and you're like, oh, and then, you get it and you don't do it. So I'm just very intentional
Yeah.
as well about what am I working on?
Yep.
And is the next thing that I find, will it be a distraction? Will it be a distraction or will it really like move
Right.
me to the way that I want to go?
Yep. Well,
Yeah.
and I think it also teaches us more about the things that bring us joy, because when you're trying new things, you can just determine if it is something that you enjoy or if it's something that you just wanted to try out and it's not a fit. So
Yes.
good
Yes.
stuff.
And sometimes those are the things that I know in my own personal business. I'm like, oh, I just need to hire this out.
Exactly. That's not my thing. You can't do it all, right?
Yes. Okay. So as a female, we just talk about like, we all face challenges.
Mhm.
What do you feel like are some of the challenges or one of the challenges that you still currently face?
I mean, mom guilt's real, right? I have 3 boys and I'm a full-time health and benefits consultant, and I have a full-time side job as well with my grit business. And I just think making sure that we're intentional and the time blocking and the boundaries is critical, but that mom guilt still seeps in because when you're spinning all the plates and you're missing emails and you're trying to keep up with all the things, sometimes we look at ourselves like, could I be doing more? We need to remind ourselves to give ourselves grace because what I keep telling myself is because I put myself out there so much and because I'm trying to be my mom, being a mom is my first priority. Everything else comes second, but I'm being a role model for my boys to see what they could be capable of achieving. So that role model is critical. But I think just the balancing act of being a mom, being a full-time employee, and then doing the things that bring me joy in addition to my work, just balancing all the things.
Yes.
Mom guilt.
Yes.
So
yep, the balancing. And I love that you just mentioned that grace. I mean, I have a mantra often that I'm like grace and compassion. Grace,
yes.
like we would give any of our friends, right? Any of our friends, grace and compassion for any of that. And just reminding ourselves to give ourselves that as well. Like grace and
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think another thing that I've learned just with all of the things that I juggle is be flexible, because every day is not always going to look the same. And some days you might be able to achieve a little bit more and other days might be a little bit less, but just be flexible, because at the end of the week, the overall, you got to look at the average. Was I able to meet everybody's needs? Was I able to, finish as I had envisioned? Then that works. I mean, we're human. So that's why I love that a book, Atomic Habits, with James Clearly, because he literally illustrates that no matter how big or small the step, as long as you're making progress in the right direction, that's progress. And I think that's how we need to evaluate just our weeks and our lives, because not every day is the same.
Yes, I love that book also. I coach a small group, and that was one of the books that we really talked about and getting habits in place and whatnot. So if you haven't read Atomic Habits and you're trying to get some habits in place, definitely read it. Okay, so what are your goals? I mean, you're doing so much right now, right? What are your goals in life and business?
Well, right now, as a health and benefits producer, I'm really trying to help businesses in our community with strategizing, because there's this looming recession. So full time, that's what I'm doing, strategizing with businesses, making sure that they have DEI strategies in place. All their employees are feeling heard and seen. Those are just critical aspects of the work that I do full time, as well as the mental health parity, just making sure that the companies have the right resources and offerings to retain their talent, as well as help with recruitment as well. So I would say that's my full-time job, and my main goal right now is really helping bring more visibility into the St. Louis mid-market space for WTW. In addition to that, I'm truly trying to be an advocate for women, helping them find their voice or allowing them to be heard once again, because we all have so many stories within us. I think of ourselves as onions, there's just so many layers. And the more transparent that we can be as leaders in our community, the more we're going to inspire others to step into these shoes in the future. So just kind of carving a path and creating this safe space for women to communicate and gather and feel empowered and iron sharpens iron. So when we
Right.
strategically put ourselves around incredible women, we're all able to level up, like what you just said, all boats will rise. And my next goal is just truly finishing out these anthologies. So I'll have 5 anthologies that will have launched in 2 years. And that has just been a really big passion project of mine, because I want people to learn how to have grit, and it's teachable, and they teach it at West Point, and it's a critical skill for life. And I feel like that's been my true calling, to teach grit, remind people that they have grit. And then I'm going to be building out courses to teach that in addition to the anthologies.
Oh,
And then
nice.
I just launched a talk show. So I'm going to highlight all the individual authors so they can have another layer of their story shared in a different light. Writing a book is one layer, but getting up on stage and talking about it in a different context is just a whole nother level. And I had that epiphany through self-reflection. I spoke for She Said, and I got up on stage with 700 people in the audience and spoke for 8 minutes on my story. And I felt so vulnerable, but yet it was so energizing. And I realized at that point, my authors needed to experience that too. So I created that environment. So I'm going to be kicking that off here soon too. But for me, it's just always listening to, what does the community need? What am I seeing the needs? And when I look at the data, which is essentially why these grit anthologies started, from a statistic that was published in Forbes stating that the majority of those that were affected during COVID were women and minorities of a certain age, particularly their building years. That became my main focus, to really help that marginalized population. But so I do all those things, but at the end of the day, I'm a mom and they're my priority. And as long as I know that they get to have their life be the best that they can be and launch to the next layer, and seeing them succeed just fills me up, because then I have more time to put in all these other spaces.
Well, congratulations on the talk show. That's fantastic. I know I speak as well, right? And so going out and speaking, and I always share my story. And the reason that I help people with stress management and mindset stuff is because who needed help with that, right? And, I had to go out and find it in different ways. And I was like, well, this is how I want to be helping people, because I know the importance of it. And if I had had a Kelly in my life back then, you know what I mean? Like, my path might have been different. I'm so grateful it is what it is. It was supposed to be this way so that I can help women. But really, like you said, having women be able to share that story, just like in the books, right? So that someone can connect with it. When you're doing a talk show, radio, like, you just connect with different people, and some people are going to read the book, and some people are going to hear the talk show, and some people are going to hear people speak. And, it just allows everybody connect in that it's just the way that is best for them. So kudos to you for doing that. That's fabulous.
Yeah. We all learn differently. And like, I have dyslexia, right? So that is why I choose to write books, because that's an area that I need to grow on. So I intentionally focus on writing books, but I can talk all day long. So like, reading a book, that's not my thing. I'd prefer to listen to an audible. So yes, we all learn differently. And I just think this is going to expand our reach and truly help that many more people by understanding our stories and then seeing themselves and then getting inspired. So I'm excited. But something that you said that kind of triggered something that I always refer to in my mind is try to be that person that you needed during your darkest times, because there's a reason why we are in this space in our lives now. And I hate the process that I had to go through in order to be the person I am now, but it's allowed me to be empathetic. It's allowed me to shine lights on others to show them that they are enough. But our journeys are never easy, right? But there's so much that we can share with others to prevent them from going through those same challenging times.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I do a 1-day breakthrough with clients that literally eliminates so much stuff in 1 day, like 1 day, bam, you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, where was it? I'm sure it was out there. I just didn't know that I needed to look for it. You know what I'm saying? So, oh yeah, I totally agree. Okay. So, we've talked about so many things. Is there an accomplishment that you are really proud of that we haven't talked about that you would like to share?
Well, I'm really excited that I stepped into publishing a book. That's something that I never thought I would do. It was always written on my yearly goals, write a book, right? Because it's terrifying. And then when I did it and I tested the waters and I saw that I really enjoyed this and it was a really cool process, that inspired me to do 4 more books. So like this Deconstructing GRIT collection, and seeing the impact that it's made in women's lives and seeing the community that it's built strategically, it's so cool to just sit back and watch. And then the GRIT community, see how that evolved. I had a small women's group called Thought Partners before COVID.
Yeah.
It was made up of like 20 women. And then that evolved to Thought Partners, which was 3 separate groups of 20 women. And that evolved to evolved to GRIT community, which I was just thinking, it's like 800 women that are part of this group. And it's just a strategic community of support. We gather, I provide free professional development once a month for an hour that everybody can access because it's virtual. And just seeing what's come out of this community and these connections and how lives have truly been transformed, that is just incredible to witness. So
yes,
I think
yes,
just all those things and showing how, once we were talking about, the cattiness, these women aren't catty. They come together to collaborate.
Right,
And
right. And that's the coolest thing about it, right? Is going into it and you as a woman, you just have to let go of the competitiveness, the judgment, the comparison, and you have to go in being your best self.
Yeah.
Knowing that there are other women that are being their best self and how you can support each other. Right? Because you in this community, there are people that I imagine that can mentor each other and can find a mentor, right? There's always someone that you can like pull up and someone that, is usually a little bit further ahead of you, and finding all of that, finding referral partners, finding people that you can go on hikes with and ride bikes with. And like, there's so many different things that in a community of 800 women, that you can truly look, whether you're looking for a friend, a support system, a business partner, whatever, it is all there.
It is. And I feel like it's such a privilege to lead leaders because these women are incredible. And just to be a part of that network, it's energizing. Every time we get together for an in-person luncheon or we gather professionally and we're all learning and growing together, it's just energizing and it's incredible. I love it.
Yes. And you have something coming up at the end of the month. If you're in the St. Louis area, if you're not, sorry, look for something online that we're doing.
So this is our 2-year celebration of my first book, Owning Your Grit. So last year it was a happy hour and now it's evolved into an expo. So I have a whole day planned out. It's called a GRIT Women in Leadership Expo. And I have over, I don't even know at this point, I think it's like 550 guests signed up. I had to open up an extra 150 seats, but we have 3 panels of authors that have participated in the anthologies to share thought leadership. We have Y98, Alec Rich, who's going to be keeping the hype up and energy high. We have networking so everybody can gather and connect and meet somebody new. We have tons of vendors in the back of the Woodard Expo. I think there's over 28 vendors that will be on site to shop local and to find something maybe for Mother's Day. But what's really cool is the panelists are authors, they're leaders in our community. So they're going to be sharing their thought leadership. And then there's going to be a small separate group. So if you want to have one-on-ones with each of these authors, you can go and connect with them further. But it's going to be an amazing day just to pour into women, and men are invited as well, but to connect, to learn, and to do a little shopping.
That's fantastic. Yes, I registered. I'm excited for it. And I've sent it to people that aren't in your community.
Yes.
That, I feel like would really be a great fit. So I've shared it as well because I think
it'll be free.
So it'll be such a great day. So I'm super excited about it. So fabulous. Thank you for sharing that. Okay. So where can people find you if they want to connect with you? Where's the best place to do that?
LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect with me. And I can also, if you're a woman and you're interested in learning more about GRIT community, I can add you to our GRIT community group in LinkedIn as well.
Okay, perfect. So first we should, and I can put this in the show notes. First, it should be your LinkedIn.
Yeah, my LinkedIn.
Get with you first. Okay, perfect. Yep. That will be fabulous. And any other last thoughts you would like to say?
just give yourself grace and be mindful of the things that fill your cup up. And I know, like you said, we have to do the things that not all the time are enjoyable. We just check them off the list, but try to make time, if it's once a day, once a week, once a month, to do the things that bring you joy and journal about it. And it's interesting because once we become more intentional about who we are, some people meditate, some people journal. It's interesting what we discover because our subconscious is there, but we don't know how to let it out.
Yes. And if you don't like to meditate or journal, sometimes all of those things come out in the shower.
Right.
When hot water is running over you, you have your best thoughts, right?
Yes.
So
I have my epiphany either in the shower or when I'm working out. Yep.
Yes, absolutely. I love journaling. I do meditate. And I also agree, have good thoughts when I'm working out and when I'm in the shower.
Yeah.
So it goes back to the awareness, right? Of just being aware of when you have those thoughts. And then I'm always like, thank you, God. Thank you, God, for that thought. And I usually say, and please help me remember it until I get somewhere.
Exactly. And so
I can write it down.
When we're going down the negativity train, you got to check yourself. So you got to either put the right music on to positively fill your cup up, or just be mindful of the words that we're filling ourselves up, because our brain is always listening. So be nice to yourself.
Yes, 100%. Well, you are an absolute delight and a joy. I know that everyone has loved this episode. So I appreciate you being a guest and taking time to be here. And I wish you all the best success. If you are a listener, check out the books that are on Amazon. Yes. And will you say the titles of them one more time?
Yeah. So Owning Your Grit. That was the international bestseller in 8 countries. And then there's Growth in the Deconstructing GRIT Collection. That was the international bestseller in 5 countries. And then I have Resilience in the Deconstructing GRIT Collection. That was international bestseller in 2 countries. So.
Excellent. And then look for
Intention comes out July 26th. Yes.
Perfect. Okay. Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Jennifer. And the rest of you, please like and be sure to subscribe to the channel and make sure that you share this, because there are women in your life, also men that have women in their life that are going to want to listen to this podcast. So please make sure that you like and share it. And I will see you next week. And until then, rise up and live.
Thank you for being a part of the Winning in Business podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode and want to rise up to your next level of success, but are worried about increased stress, time for work and yourself and your family, not to mention being exhausted, I'd like to invite you to a complimentary strategy call where I'll show you how you can do it all. I'll help you reclaim time, keep your sanity, handle the chaos with ease, and move to the next level of success that you deserve and desire. I hope you found value in listening today. Please always leave your comments, feedback, or questions. We check them all. I want you to continue winning in business and reach your next level of success. See you next time.